Hello, and welcome to Season 3 of Family Twist, a podcast about DNA surprises, found family, and amazing adoption stories. I'm Kendall Stulce, and my partner is Corey Stulce. We've had fabulous guests during Seasons 1 and 2.
We're sharing stories of people who identify as NPEs, also called not parent expected, others who found out they were donor conceived and have surprise siblings, and even others with unique family twists. We started this podcast to spotlight Kendall's adoption story and his discovering both sides of his biological family in 2017. So if you're just finding the podcast, we encourage you to start with episode 1 to learn more about Kendall's journey.
Thank you for listening.
Thanks again for joining us on Family Twist, now in Season 3. In fact, this is our first episode of Season 3. We've used our hiatus to get some really great guests for Season 3. I'm very excited about these episodes. So far, they've just been great. Kendall and I were commenting yesterday that we've just been really fortunate to find such well-spoken, great storytellers, good senses of humor. It's been great. So we thought we'd do a little recap of why we're doing this podcast in the first place. We discovered Kendall's birth family back in 2017. And Kendall, you just want to give us like a little bit of a shortened version of your story just so people are caught up?
Sure. I always, when I meet new people who want to hear why I moved to New England, I almost always tell this story pretty quickly. And it's that until 2017, all I knew about my birth is that I was adopted by my parents when I was 2 months old. And it was a private adoption. And so I had zero information, except I knew my birth name, I knew my birth date, and I knew where I was born. And then in 2017, Corey got me an Ancestry.com DNA kit, and I immediately matched with my half brother Chris in Massachusetts, who had been looking for me since 1988. So after thinking I was an only child for 47 years and being raised that way, I suddenly found out that both my birth parents are still living. They were teenagers when I was born, which is why I was given up. I'm the oldest child, but they both went on to have 3 other children with other people. And so suddenly I had 6 half siblings, 13 nieces and nephews, and birth parents overnight. So that prompted us to want to tell not only my story, but also to find others who had interesting stories. And it's it's been a really great catalyst for me and my siblings to connect even further. And you get to hear their stories, their impressions of meeting me, and how that all went if you listen to season 1.
And so we're going to do something, this is something that we've never done before. So, if you've been listening to the podcast, you know that unfortunately, Kendall has not yet connected with his birth mother. It's been 5 years. It's been very frustrating for him and for me. And, it's an ongoing bit of trauma for this whole experience. So, Kendall has written a letter to her that he's going to now read.
Jackie, I just want to speak to you once. I just want to hear your voice. I don't need anything else from you. Of course, I would welcome a relationship, but I assume it's of no interest to you. That's okay. I just don't want something to happen to either you or me without having the chance to speak at least once. People say that you said that, quote, that period of your life when I was born was extremely difficult. I understand that. I can't imagine having a child at 15 and then placing the child for adoption. I want you to know that until recently, I never harbored any bad feelings toward you or your parents, who I assume encouraged you to place me for adoption. Now, though, I'm becoming a bit resentful because I logically am wondering why you don't want to know me. I'm a good person, and you should be proud of the way my adoptive parents raised me. They were wonderful people and instilled admirable morals into my daily life, and those morals are still my guiding principles. Before my mother, Betty, died in 1980, she told me that she hoped I would find my biological family someday and that she knew that my parents would love getting to know me. So in my heart, I feel as if I haven't fulfilled Betty's dying wish for me. Before my father, Rubel, died in 1987, he told me something very similar. I've always been a positive thinker, and I deluded myself into thinking that finding my biological family would be perfect. It has not been perfect, but it has been wonderful. I feel as if Richard might agree to connect with me more fully if you gave him your blessing. I don't even feel as if I can visit the town where you live to see Brooke and her family because she and you live so close to each other. The door for me is still open. So, my question for you is, what's the easiest way for you and me to make this happen?
Was that hard to write?
No, because I think it's a good question, but I think that, and you know this because you and I have talked about it so many times, but I feel like I'm just finally putting on paper or on screen. I didn't, it's not technically paper. Typing it out was a little therapeutic, but it really is just reiterating everything I felt for so many times over and over in the last 5 years. And I just feel like I don't know that she'll ever accept a call from me. I don't know that she'll ever open a piece of mail from me or an email from me. But I feel like even if she doesn't read this, if others know that this is the way I feel about meeting my birth mother, I think it's important.
Yeah. So are you considering sending a physical copy of this?
Yes, what's awkward about this whole situation is I feel like I'd have to send it to my sister Brooke, who lives next door to my mother, because I don't even have my mother's address. I maybe be able to figure it out if I looked on, Google Maps. But I also that that sort of makes me angry too, because it shouldn't be Brooke's responsibility. It shouldn't be Stephanie's responsibility. It shouldn't be Richard's responsibility to help my mother and me connect. I feel like she and I are both grown, very grown adults who should be able to move forward. And like I said, even if it's one time, Corey, that I need nothing from her.
Right.
I I would love to have a relationship with her, but I don't need that. Nobody will ever replace Betty as my mother.
Well, it's interesting. We've interviewed dozens of people for the podcast, and several of them have had some great reunions, with their birth parents. Others haven't. There are some that are in very similar situation to you, and I do find it really interesting to hear their other people's perspective on it. Because it varies. There are some like you that are a little bit resentful and hurt, and there are others who just like, hey, accepted it, and I know that that's not something that's going to be easy for you to do.
It isn't. And I think it's because my other parents died. Like for me, it feels really real to think that I could, never meet my mother, my birth mother. And, I'm not saying other people don't have dead adoptive parents, but I just mean, I think my mother died when I was 10, my dad when I was 16. I don't feel like an orphan, but I did have 30 years, of having that situation be real for me. And so I think because of that, I don't want to waste any more time, you know. I and again, even if that means a one-time conversation, with my biological mother. Um, and I will never understand somebody who doesn't want to know their child. I just don't. I, I, I can read everything that people write. I can I can empathize deeply, but I know myself. There is no way, and I think you're the same way, Corey. I don't think I could have gone to sleep that night when I knew, if I were a parent who had just found the child that I had to give away, I would not have been able to go to sleep that night without reaching out to the child. Hi, it's Kendall. I just wanted to pause here for a moment to ask a quick favor. If you're able to safely look at your phone, not while driving, We would love it if you will subscribe to the podcast and if you'll give us a review. We'd love to hear what you think. Okay, back to the episode. You know, many people in my life have said, why don't you just go and knock on her front door? And I feel like, okay, I could do that. Do I risk rejection? Of course, that doesn't even bother me. I just feel like at this moment in time, I don't need that either. You know, like I need her to be an adult and to call me or write me or, send me a message through one of my siblings, to say something. I, I feel that it's weird. I I've sent her Mother's Day gifts with no response. I've sent her Christmas gifts with no response. I'm not doing that anymore. And it's not an expense thing. I mean, I don't ever want somebody to think that. It's just why am I spinning my wheels, right? Why am I doing that to myself? Except that it makes me feel better to do something like that because I feel like that's natural and normal. You should want to give your parent a gift,
Right.
and so it feels weird to me to not do that. um but I can't I won't continue to just feel pooped on. I won't. I was raised with enough pride that sometimes it can get in my way, and I admit that. But I also feel like I'm a good person and I don't understand why, you know, unless she's a homophobe and can't deal with that as part of the equation. I don't know. I don't know enough about her. I don't know. I feel awkward asking her sister questions about her. I feel awkward asking my siblings questions about her. And so, you know, it's sad because I don't want to think the worst about her, but it doesn't help when I don't know the answers, right? When I don't know that she's not a homophobe, when I don't know that she's not a racist, when I don't know, I hate that some of these stereotypes that can exist are kind of sadly stuck in my mind about her. Not that race should come into the play here. That isn't part of the equation for us, but um, it's a fear that I have, that those things are true. And nobody is combating my fears right now.
Right. Right. I mean, I would like to think that it's more of a situation where she's just buried this and is, horrified that it got dug up and found out, because it was something that she, put away.
I hear you. I would like to think that that's the case too, but also I'm almost 53. Like, if you're not going to deal with it now as a parent, when will you deal with it? You know, and sadly, sadly, it seems like she might not want to deal with it. You know, she might want to keep this, because, keep in mind, listeners, her husband's huge family supposedly doesn't know about me. So, part of it's that, like, I'm this dirty little secret that's still out there 53 years later, which to me just sounds so archaic. I mean, whatever. I don't want to get on a soapbox and I don't want to make moral judgments about, other things that she has accepted in her life, that, lots of listeners would say, oh, well, if she could accept that, why wouldn't she accept, you know, you? When you have 5+ years to think about it, you think about it a lot. And without more detail, as I said, I feel like I'm assuming some not so nice things about her that might just not be true.
Well, I don't want this episode to be completely a bummer
Yeah.
because it's interesting. We did an interview yesterday, and after we finished the recording, we spoke with this gentleman for a while, and he's an author, and he's done several podcasts. and not something that we were aware of, but he said a lot of the podcasts that he's done around adoption are like they go out of their way to be like, you know, super super sad and heartbreaking and stuff. And you know, that's not to say that we haven't had sad moments on this show, but I feel like, you know, the good has definitely outweighed the bad as far as our, you know, the experiences that our guests have had. And it's just like it's hard, you know, because this is the hardest part of this whole journey is that, you know, it's been 5 years now, and you haven't been able to connect with your mother. But it is definitely healing for me to hear some of these stories. I mean, I told Kendall yesterday I got goosebumps at one point. It's like, you know, and I've heard, you know, quite a few of these stories, but it's like I'm nowhere near jaded by it,
No,
because it's just, you know, it's just wow, you know, it's just this incredible stories out there. And you know, we've educated ourselves on the different communities over the last year. You know, we didn't know about necessarily like the NPE, not parent expected. Um, but and then that's a huge growing community, you know, and there's definitely a lot of folks who, you know, are still traumatized and still healing. And you know, it's we love being able to share those stories with people, because I think every time we do, you know, I think it helps at least someone a little bit more, you know.
absolutely. And I will always have that passion, after spending 47 years of my life not knowing. That's a long time, and to be curious and to know that my adoptive parents were supportive of the thought that I would find family. So it wasn't like I wasn't this dirty little secret in my adoptive family. So I never expected to be that in my biological family this many years later, because exactly what I thought might have been true was true. My parents were teenagers. It wasn't like a 30-year-old woman who was well established who just decided she'd rather have a career and not a child. You know what I mean? Like it was a completely different era. It was a completely different mindset toward, illegitimate children, that sort of thing. So I never expected at this point in time in 2023 to still be needing to justify my existence. So, but to your point, Corey, we've had an overwhelmingly positive experience with my family, and it isn't lost on me that we're preparing for, um, well, actually, one just happened this past weekend, but uh, we have three of my nieces and nephews are graduating high school this month. So my sister's son in Arkansas, my sister's son in Nashua, New Hampshire, and my brother's daughter in Massachusetts. So these are wonderful things that had we waited a few more years to make this discovery, we would have missed.
Right.
You know,
Right. Yeah, and I think we already feel like we've missed a lot, you know, of, you know, when they were kids. So it has been really great to see them grow up.
yeah, yeah, and I am thankful that this happened in 2017 and not 2027 when they were all adults, you know.
Right.
Um, yeah, we would have missed, that much more of their lives. And of course with my siblings, but it's fascinating to me to watch these kids, grow up. So I love it. And I feel like I'm missing out on that with my mother's side of the family because I'm just not welcome. I'm not welcome there on Christmas. I'm not welcome there on Thanksgiving. I'm not, and I feel like it's, well, of course it's unfair to me, but it's kind of unfair to the kids too. Like they don't get to know their cool Uncle Kendall,
Right.
you know,
Exactly.
and Corey. But I mean, it's, yeah, I feel like one person in this formula is holding up a lot of progress. So yeah, I can't help but feel some resentment about that.
Well, I'm going to remain hopeful that maybe even during this season of Family Twist that changes. You know, we've recorded a bunch of episodes already, but you know, still more to come. And certainly, if there's some kind of movement there, we'll definitely be talking about it. Um, but yeah, in the meantime, we'll continue to share Kendall's story. We're going to have more of his family members on this season, and we've just got a really interesting lineup of folks. It's like we just keep finding these great stories.
I didn't read that letter to feel reactive. I don't want to create a barrier that isn't there. I just feel like I need to I need to get my feelings out there. That was really the purpose of that.
Right. I mean, and this is your outlet,
Absolutely.
because you don't have another one.
Right. And, I have zero um, knowledge about whether she listens to this, whether she's interested in hearing anything about this. I hope so. I hope she does listen.
I hope so too. So, I do quite a bit of sleuthing online trying to find guests, but guests have found us too. So, I know we've mentioned this quite a bit, but if you've got an interesting family twist, we would love to share it on the show. So, reach out. FamilyTwistPodcast.com. You can find our contact information there, blog posts. We just put up a resource page for NPEs. And yeah, we're just kind of continuing to expand this Family Twist project. Thank you so much for listening to Family Twist. We feature original music by Cosmic Afterthoughts. And Family Twist is presented by Savoir Faire Marketing Communications. Check out our website at FamilyTwistPodcast.com for blog posts and all of our episodes.